In a world filled with constant noise, distractions, notifications, responsibilities, opinions, we often forget the most important voice, the one within ourselves. Master Shi Heng Yi, a Shaolin monk and teacher, shares a philosophy not built on escaping life, but on embracing it. He teaches that true inner peace is not found in the absence of noise, but in learning how to remain calm in the middle of it. Inner peace is not about silence outside, it's about stillness inside. We live in an age of overstimulation. Social media, news, pressure to succeed. Our minds are always racing, but Shi Heng Yi reminds us, if your mind is always full, there is no space for new understanding. So how do we find that space? We don't need to move to a mountain or disconnect from life. We need to train the mind the same way we train the body. Discipline, awareness, and presence are the tools he teaches. Peace is a practice, it's not an accident. He says, don't become a slave to your emotions, become a master of your responses. This is the power of mindful living. When you build inner strength, you stop reacting to the noise and start responding with purpose. You listen deeper, see clearer, and live more fully. Shi Heng Yi's philosophy teaches us that your environment does not determine your peace, your inner training does. In this noisy world, the greatest power is the ability to remain undisturbed. Let us not search for silence outside, let us cultivate silence within. We often mistake peace for silence, believing that if the world around us becomes quiet, we will finally feel calm. But Shi Heng Yi teaches that this is an illusion. The noise we face, phones ringing, people talking, schedules piling up, and opinions bombarding us, is only the surface. Even when we're in a silent room, our minds may still be loud. Thoughts race, worries repeat, memories and doubts echo. That's because the true noise isn't always outside, it's inside us. Shi Heng Yi emphasizes that the mind is like a mirror. It reflects whatever surrounds it unless it's trained to stay still. If the mirror is constantly shaking, the image is blurry, but if you still the mirror, clarity returns. Similarly, if we rely on the world to become quiet before we feel peaceful, we hand over our power to conditions we can't control. Peace, then, is not about eliminating all noise from our environment. It's about learning how to stand in the middle of the storm without letting it enter us. It is about finding the silence within, even when the world outside is loud and chaotic. This shift from reacting to outer noise to mastering our inner state is where the real transformation begins. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded by stimuli visual, auditory, emotional, and mental. From the moment we wake up, the mind is pulled in countless directions. The first thing many people do is check their phone, messages, emails, social media, news. This flood of information continues all day. The notifications beep, advertisements flash, conversations swirl, deadlines loom. Even when we seek relaxation, we often turn to entertainment that continues to stimulate rather than calm us. Shi Heng Yi highlights that this overstimulation is not just a modern inconvenience, it is a significant barrier to inner peace. The mind, like the body, becomes fatigued when it is overloaded, but unlike physical fatigue, mental exhaustion is more deceptive. It shows up as irritability, restlessness, anxiety, lack of clarity, or emotional instability. We think something is wrong with us, when in fact the mind is simply overworked and underrested. This overstimulated state becomes the new normal for many people. As a result, we lose touch with the ability to sit in silence, to be with our thoughts without reacting to them, to reflect without distraction. The mind becomes like a computer with too many tabs open, slow, fragmented, and prone to crashing. Shi Heng Yi teaches that the solution is not to escape modern life, but to become aware of how it affects us. Without this awareness, we remain at the mercy of external forces. He reminds us that in this fast-paced, noisy environment, peace must be something we actively cultivate. It requires intention and discipline. Without this practice, the constant noise of the world will control our inner state, dictating our thoughts, emotions, and decisions. Shi Heng Yi often refers to a powerful metaphor drawn from Zen philosophy, the idea of the mind as a cup. If the cup is already filled with assumptions, opinions, judgments, distractions, or ego, there is no room left to receive anything new. This metaphor teaches that before growth, wisdom, or peace can enter our lives, we must first create space. We must empty the cup. In modern life, our minds are overloaded with information and noise, but also with internal clutter, unresolved emotions, limiting beliefs, rigid identities, and constant mental chatter. We hold tightly to what we think we know, what we believe we must be, and how we believe life should go. We accumulate layers of mental and emotional baggage over the years, expectations from society, comparisons with others, and fears that we aren't even conscious of carrying. Shi Heng Yi encourages the practice of letting go, not as a passive act, but as a deliberate mental discipline. Letting go does not mean forgetting who you are or losing direction. It means creating mental spaciousness so that clarity can arise. A mind that is always filled with noise cannot hear the whisper of wisdom. A heart that is always tense cannot feel peace. He explains that in order to receive something new, whether it's insight, peace, or transformation, we have to be willing to release what no longer serves us. This could be a grudge, a rigid self-image, a toxic habit, or even just the busyness of everyday thought patterns. By emptying the cup, we become receptive. We stop seeing the world only through the filter of the past and start to perceive things as they are in the present moment. This process of emptying also requires humility. It's an admission that no matter how much we've learned or achieved, there is still room to grow. In fact, the wisest individuals are often the ones who know how to step back and allow space for stillness and insight to emerge on their own. Shi Heng Yi draws a profound connection between physical discipline and mental discipline. Just as a strong, flexible, and resilient body does not happen by accident, neither does a peaceful, focused, and calm mind. In both cases, it requires deliberate training, consistency, and commitment. The mistake many people make is assuming that the mind should naturally be calm or focused, and when it isn't, they feel something is wrong. But the reality is that the untrained mind, like the untrained body, is chaotic by default. He explains that the mind is not fixed. It is like a muscle. If neglected, it becomes weak, unfocused, and easily overwhelmed. But if trained daily, it becomes stronger, more balanced, and better able to withstand pressure. Meditation, breathwork, self-reflection, and mindfulness are not abstract or spiritual luxuries. They are mental workouts. Just as you lift weights to strengthen your muscles, you practice stillness to strengthen your awareness and self-mastery. Most people are aware of physical fitness goals, endurance, strength, flexibility, but rarely do they set goals for mental fitness. Yet mental endurance is what allows you to stay calm under pressure. Mental strength is what helps you overcome fear and negativity. Mental flexibility is what helps you adapt to change and uncertainty. All these qualities can be developed, but only if approached with the same seriousness and discipline we give to physical development. Shi Heng Yi emphasizes that true peace is not about escaping life's challenges. It's about preparing yourself to face them with clarity and control. Training the mind means becoming familiar with your thoughts, observing your emotional reactions, and learning how to respond rather than react. It means sitting in discomfort, being still with yourself, and pushing through the resistance of distraction or impatience. Just as physical training involves discomfort before growth, mental training requires you to move through restlessness, boredom, or even emotional discomfort. But over time, this training creates mental resilience, a stable center that doesn't get thrown off balance by every wave that life brings. One of the central teachings in Shi Heng Yi's life philosophy is the difference between emotions and responses. Emotions are natural. They arise spontaneously: anger, sadness, fear, frustration, joy, jealousy. They are part of being human, and Shi Heng Yi does not advocate suppressing them. Instead, he encourages becoming aware of them without becoming controlled by them. This awareness is what transforms a reaction into a response. In everyday life, we often live in reaction mode. Someone says something rude, and we snap back. A situation doesn't go our way, and we spiral into negative thinking. These automatic reactions are deeply ingrained, patterns shaped by past experiences, traumas, and habits. But Shi Heng Yi reminds us that while we cannot always control what we feel, we can learn to control what we do with those feelings. That's where mastery begins. To master your response means to create a pause between stimulus and action. That pause is a moment of power, a space where awareness lives. It is in that moment that you get to decide, do I want to act from habit or from clarity? Do I want to speak out of pain or out of presence? This gap, small as it may seem, is the foundation of inner strength. It separates the mind that is reactive from the mind that is free. This teaching is not about becoming emotionless. In fact, it's about becoming emotionally intelligent. When you recognize your feelings without being overpowered by them, you learn to respond to life with intentionality. You begin to choose your words, your tone, your posture, your energy, rather than letting your emotions dictate them for you. It's a shift from being a passenger in your own life to taking the wheel with both hands. Shi Heng Yi emphasizes practices like breath control and mindfulness to sharpen this skill. The breath, he says, is the anchor that brings you into the present, the bridge between emotion and response. When you feel yourself overwhelmed, one conscious breath can bring you back to that moment of choice. Over time, these small acts of awareness compound into a powerful discipline. Mastering your response does not mean denying emotion. It means respecting it while not being ruled by it. The emotion may still be there, but now you decide how to move forward rather than letting it drag you into impulsive reactions, regrets, or unnecessary conflict. One of Shi Heng Yi's most powerful insights is that inner peace should not be conditional. We often think peace can only be found in serene locations, a quiet mountain, a temple, a retreat center. While those places can support reflection, they are not the source of peace. Peace does not come from escaping your environment. It comes from transforming your relationship with it. Shi Heng Yi teaches that peace is not about where you are, but about who you are in that place. In today's busy world, people are constantly seeking peace through external changes. They change jobs, move cities, take vacations, or isolate themselves, hoping that doing so will quiet their inner unrest. But without inner training, even the most tranquil setting can feel unsettled. The mind will carry its turbulence wherever it goes. If you have not built calmness within yourself, the environment alone will never be enough to sustain it. Shi Heng Yi explains that peace cultivated in isolation, but not tested in daily life, is incomplete. True inner peace must be able to exist in the middle of pressure, noise, and unpredictability. This is why monks, though often associated with silent temples, train themselves to bring that stillness with them into any situation. The goal is not to retreat from the world forever, but to build an inner state so solid that it can withstand whatever the world brings. He often reminds his students, if your peace is easily disturbed, it is not yet strong. The strength of inner peace is measured by how well it holds up when things go wrong, when someone criticizes you, when plans fall apart, when uncertainty strikes. It is easy to feel calm when everything is going smoothly. The challenge and the real training is to feel centered when everything around you is not. This philosophy also shifts responsibility inward. It teaches that we cannot keep blaming circumstances, people, or situations for our lack of peace. Doing so gives away our power, but when we recognize that the root of peace lies within, we reclaim control. No longer are we waiting for life to calm down before we can breathe. We learn to breathe calmly in the middle of life. Shi Heng Yi emphasizes that wherever you go, your mind goes with you. If your mind is scattered, even paradise will feel restless. But if your mind is still, even chaos cannot shake you. This is why environment is secondary and internal discipline is primary. The work is not out there, it's in here. In a culture that glorifies busyness, movement, and constant productivity, stillness is often misunderstood. It is seen as laziness, weakness, or passivity. But Shi Heng Yi teaches the exact opposite. Stillness is not a sign of weakness. It is a mark of immense inner strength. It is easy to be agitated, to react impulsively, to constantly stay busy as a way of avoiding discomfort. But it takes great strength to remain still when everything around you is in motion. Stillness, in this context, is not just physical silence. It is an internal quietness, a mental clarity that is not shaken by noise, chaos, or emotion. It's a deep-rooted presence that remains unbothered by the highs and lows of daily life. When you cultivate stillness, you are no longer tossed around by every thought, every feeling, or every situation. You become anchored in yourself. Shi Heng Yi often likens stillness to the surface of undisturbed water. When the water is calm, it reflects clearly, but when it is stirred, it becomes muddy and confused. In the same way, when the mind is still, it reflects truth. It allows insight, clarity, and awareness to rise naturally. When the mind is agitated, we lose sight of what matters. We act from fear, anger, or ego instead of wisdom. This stillness is not something you stumble upon accidentally. It is something you build deliberately through conscious practices, meditation, breath awareness, mindful movement, and disciplined observation of the self. Every time you sit in silence without running away from your thoughts, you strengthen your ability to remain calm. Every time you breathe consciously in the face of stress, you strengthen your ability to respond instead of react. These small moments are where inner stillness is forged. In a world where speed is valued more than depth, where answers are rushed and emotions flare instantly, stillness becomes revolutionary. It allows you to step back, observe, and choose, not from panic, but from peace. This kind of inner control gives you a quiet confidence. You don't need to dominate others or raise your voice to prove your strength. Your presence speaks for itself. Shi Heng Yi also teaches that stillness gives you energy. Most people are drained not because they work too much, but because their minds never rest. Mental stillness recharges you in a way that no external rest can. It restores your clarity, your patience, and your ability to see situations from a higher perspective. It becomes your sanctuary, not something separate from life, but something you carry into every part of it. Let me know if you now want a summary of all points, a conclusion to this series, or anything else like a video script, SEO content, or a thumbnail suggestion. In a world that constantly demands our attention, energy, and emotions, it is easy to feel scattered, overwhelmed, and disconnected. But Shi Heng Yi reminds us that we are not helpless victims of noise.